then make a grid and make a really large, huge piece. These, I bring the samples home from the beach, wash them in fresh water so I get all the salt out, and then I prepare them to go onto onto the paper. Now, I would love to claim that I invented this process, but no. It's something that's been used for several hundred years. Beginning in the 1600s, botanists, scientists started to create herbariums, which are basically libraries of specimens of plants. And so if you have a sturdy, kind of bulky plant, you would just put it on the paper like you might do a colorful leaf from the fall, and then you put another sheet of paper on top and you press it and flatten it. Well, if you did that with these images, nothing would be left of them. So here's one, for example, I mean a sample that I haven't mounted that's out of my studio. And it's on a piece, happens to be on a piece of Arch's printing paper. So I tend to use either my rag photographic paper or printing paper. And so this is life size, so you could tell it's about, this piece of paper is roughly 8 by 10. So when it's in the water, I slip this piece of paper in underneath. The seaweed is floating, and then I try to carefully lift it up and not have it fall off the edge, which it does because that's where the water's flowing. And so slowly, carefully, you eventually, hopefully, get it to land. And then you take this sheet of paper, and I have a whole table covered with newsprint and paper towels and so forth. And I set this down on there and then let it go overnight. I might, get in there with my fingernail and tweak a little bit. And Robert was curious, like, what is actually happening? This is very, very fragile stuff. It's part of the whole family called porphyra, which is what we eat when we eat sushi and all sorts of things, variations of this. So it's really like one cell in thickness. And so when it sits on the paper, particularly when it's a paper with a little bit of matte quality, it absorbs, I don't know if that's not the right word, it settles into the paper. And I mean, I can just barely feel it when I put my hands across it now, because it's that thin. You can't press this because it would just mess it up. Whatever you put on top of it, it would just sort of fall apart. So then I let this dry overnight. And if the paper curls, you can see this is a little bit curly, I might put another clean sheet when it's completely dry and then some heavy books. And the question is, so what happens to this? I think of this as like a watercolor painting. It has a sort of potential fugitive quality that it might fade. So I treat this, I've had some of these in my house for several years. But have I put them in the, bright light and done a fade test? No, I haven't, and I should. So anyway, I put these under 99% UV, proof art glass so that theoretically they're going to last. I can't prove it. I have done research to try to find out, okay, does anybody know how long these will last? Do they have, 100-year life? I don't know, but I would just treat them like a watercolor and make sure that they're not in the sun. So that's
So
That's enough on that.
you say some of your small stuff, which is the name of your exhibit, are mixed media pieces which incorporate bits of found materials from the land. Can you tell
Right.
us first, where do you look for these and what are you looking for?
Well, mostly I'm looking for stuff that reveals something about age and history and, you know, if they were large pieces, if they were large things, they would be ruins perhaps. But these are small, and so I think of them as like detritus or scraps or litter. And I tend to, any place a person, a human has been, usually you find some of the junk that is left behind. And these are all from man-made found objects. I mean, they tend to be little fragments of rust or metal or maybe slate from a roof or something like that. And I'm interested in objects that are, for the most part, very distinct from what they were originally used for. So they can be used as raw material. I'm interested in textures. I love the edges of things. The surface, a kind of patina, and so I just collect them and put them in a box, and then I use them in ways that really have nothing to do. They're about the formal qualities of the work and what they might suggest to me, and in these cases are combined with they're all done on, basically they're little plexiglass boxes about 1 inch deep that I have covered with fabric and then put a primer coat on and then attached the materials and then worked with other mixed media, whether it's paint or ink or whatever. So, and these are, this piece and another one that are in this sequence are a reference to the plague. I don't know how many of you know about the Ring Around the Rosie song or child's play thing. The Ring Around the Rosie, ashes, ashes, we all fall down, originated in the plague of the Black Plague and had to do, various people think it, or various thoughts about what its meaning actually is, but whether it's the ashes from cremation or we all fall down and die and so forth. So that working on that at this time was really interesting to me.
So I have no questions. We have about 15 minutes for people to either ask questions on the chat or to ask them using their voice. And Barbara Woodbury is going to moderate this. Oop. I just muted you. Sorry.
Who did you mute?
No. Barbara's.
Okie dokie, I'm unmuted. So Phyllis?
A couple of things. First of all, how are these pieces presented? You said they're wrapped. What is that? When I see them, what do I see?
Like what we're looking at right now on the screen.
Yes.
As I say, it's a little plexiglass box. What's the size of this? 6 1/4 by 4 1/8. It's a little box, and the box has been wrapped with fabric, and then the materials are glued and to the surface of that, and then there's paint or ink or whatever. So are they framed? No, there's no additional frame.
But the texture is on the outside. If I see it, the texture is what I see and feel.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes.
And the other pieces, the amazing, change this,
seaweed pieces, yeah,
Yeah.
algae.
They are not framed, and they are going to be at
They are framed. I think if you go to the PDF that's on the website, you'll see that I did frame them in little itty bitty antique frames for the most part. And they are framed under glass.
Okay. And are they at the gallery, or they will be if someone?
No, they're not.
Well,
They're in my studio.
what if someone wants one, like me?
Well, you have to talk to Robert.
Terry will have to bring some, or
Okay.
the other thought is we have a second group show starting on February now,
February.
In February, good.
September 12th.
Uh-huh.
In October. So if people are interested, I think this might be a wonderful body of work for Terry to show for our second group show.
That would be a great idea. And then anybody who's interested could see them at that time. I mean, I'm willing to drive to Wellfleet if there are particular pieces that someone wanted in between, before then.
I may not be there on September 12th, so.
Well, you're here, so you're easy.
What do you mean? I'm in Cambridge now. I will be in Wellfleet, but yeah, okay. All right. That's fine. Sorry.
Candace, you had a question?
Well, I wondered, the one that you showed us, the seaweed that was, what was it called? It was the fugitive something?
Well, fugitive is just a word that refers to pigments that don't hold up. I'm sorry, that's an artist's word.
That's a great word, though.
Fugitive pigments are ones that fade easily. I mean, you may have had, a poster or something. Reds, for example, are very notorious for fading. And, if you're a watercolorist, there are some pigments and colors that are much more fugitive, fading than others.
So I'm drawing the word. So fugitive, I like. It's right up there with feral. I really like that
Yep.
word. So this one that you showed, do those? Is that the actual pink in nature? Is it that color?
It is.
That's
I mean,
amazing.
this is incredible. Almost all of the seaweeds in this genus are in the red seaweed family. There are basically, I'm an expert on seaweeds, forgive me. There are red, green, and brown seaweeds, even though they don't always hold true to those colors. But this one attracted me. I mean, this one, I've been looking at this one for years. And in fact, the large piece toward the end that's called Apparition, which is, I forget when that's from. It's probably from about 2011, 12 or something. And it's about 8 feet square, or maybe 6 feet square, I forget. That is this same family, which is called Porphyra. And it is in the same, this one. I mean, this is just, when I saw this, this one actually I found down in Blackfish Creek at the end of Payne Hollow Road. And I just thought, oh my God, this is amazing. And I mean, what you're looking at is something blown up here now. Each of these, let's see, that's 6 feet across. So it's 6 feet by 6 feet, more or less. I mean, it's just amazing. But what's really amazing is how to get the darn thing out of the water. Because as I think I said at one point, if you pick this up out of the water, it just turns into a little gob in your hand. And it just collapses. So the challenge is how to get it into its beautiful quality that it had in the water and do something with it, which is how I worked on this floating in the, in the bathtub or in the dishpan thing. Now, and this one was particularly complicated because of all of its little arms. There are about, I don't know, 30 or 40 different variations of this particular porphyra. I mean, these are, this is a different one. That one that I call Nightlife, a different genus completely. But you know, these that I have used for this show, they're almost all from this family. And you know, anyway, there are others, like, I don't know if you can see this, but it's really, really tiny little, I mean, the threads of it are smaller than anything you'd ever sew with. So it's, anyway, enough.
Anyone else have a question? Catherine? You're muted.
Terry, this is just fascinating stuff, and it's so different from what you've done before. And I wonder if you could talk about that a little bit. I mean, collecting seaweed, I do not remember this in your...
Oh, well, you know, the big pieces, that was basically the work that I did from about 2009 until 2012 in there. And I had, you know, several major shows of that. Not in Wellfleet, because there's no place to show big work in Wellfleet. Okay. But it was shown 2 or 3 places in Provincetown, once at the Fine Arts Work Center, and a couple times, once at the, the Center for Coastal Studies, and not at the schoolhouse, but at any rate. Yeah, and so, I mean, so it's part of what I love to do, which is go walk the beaches. And this has been, you know, one of the few things that I can do at this time and calm down, to be out there. So this was like a real gift to myself to go out and collect these samples and bring them home. I mean, a few of these, no, none of the fresh samples. I mean, I've done these small things before, but I've never shown them.
Thank you.
Yep.
Well, we have 5 minutes left, so someone has a burning question that needs to be answered. Please.
Terry, are some
Yep.
of these similar to the ones that you remember you had an exhibit at the Audubon?
Oh, yeah.
What's that
Oh,
one?
the water show.
Right.
I don't think I had any seaweed in that show, but, you know, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I mean, but they were zeroing in on patterns of water, and maybe there were, I know I had one that had ice on the water, but at any rate.
Oh, Mark? Did you have a question?
It's muted.
I think you're muted.
Okay, Terry, I was wondering if when you collect the seaweed, do you let it dry out and then rehydrate it, or do you have to keep it wet the entire time?
I have to bring it home and get to work. Yes, you can leave it sitting in your dishpan for maybe a few days, but you know, it starts to, I don't know, it starts to disintegrate a little bit. I mean, I leave it in this salt water, which gets a little smelly sometimes, so I want to get to work on it. You know, going back to the previous piece, you can see, if you can, whoever, yeah, I mean, you can see here that this is actually 3 different types, and like this one that's like more sticky, that's very, I mean, if you were a botanist collecting that, it wouldn't be such a problem because you could do heavier, bulkier ones and just press them between paper. But I really love these very fine ones, and it's really hard to get them to meld into the paper, but this one is fine enough so that it can, because, this is the dimension there is, it's less than what, 6 inches wide, so.
Sorry.
Okay.
Terry, I was wondering, you spoke about seeing one of these samples of algae at the end of Payne Hollow Road, and you were blown away by it.
Yeah.
I don't know what the scale is here, but would it have been possible for you to photograph that in the water as you saw it being so magnificent there and then?
Well, yes, assuming the water is still. Usually the water is moving and the stuff is moving around and floating, and it's underneath the water. It's not like it's floating on top of the water. So you could try, but very hard to get the full sense of it.
How large are these actual pieces that you're recovering?
Oh, they're all like less than 8 by 10. I mean, most of the, yeah, they're tiny. That's why it's called small stuff. I mean, they're really small.
No, but 8
I mean,
inches,
like
8 inches by 10 inches is not terribly small. I mean, it's
no,
okay.
but like this one is, and actually those are the frame sizes. So like this says 5 5/8 by 4 1/8. And my guess is that inside this piece of seaweed, which is actually 2 pieces of seaweed together, it's probably, more like 3 by 4.
Mhm.
So, no, they're not minuscule.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to interject and say that it's 6:30. I was going to say 8:30, but it isn't 8:30. So I want to thank everyone who wants to leave now, because I think that's it's 6:30.
Good. Well, thank you all.
Thank you, Terry.
Hey, thank you, Terry.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you, Terry. That was fabulous.
Thank you. Thank you.
Fabulous,
Thank you, Terry.
Terry. Fabulous.
Okay. Oh, hi,
Wonderful to
Darcy.
see you all.
Hi, Terry.
How are you? Nice
I'm
to
well.
see
How are
you.
you?
Darcy from New Jersey.
Yes.
Terry, this was fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, see you all in
Hope-
2 weeks. I think Phyllis is next.
Yeah.
Yes.
All
And
right.
hope to see some folks in the fall.
Indeed.
I mean, in person, maybe.
What's that?
So thank you, Terry.
Amen to that, Terry.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Barbara Woodbury. Thank you, Wendy Luttrell. And thank you all for participating. Farewell.
Farewell.
Barbara, for doing this.
Yeah. Great job.